What's up, everyone? In today's video, we have some giant news to talk about that nobody was expecting. We're also going to be taking a close look at Intel stock, and we're also going to cover a lawsuit between Amazon and their Alexa slash Ring doorbell data situation. And then to top off all of that, we have the mother of all sell signals that has just hit the market. So make sure to stick with us all the way to the end. But Tom, let's get right into it.
Yeah, the overall market had a pretty good day today, in my opinion. There was a lot of selling pressure early on. And honestly, I found a lot of these tech stocks to the downside to be pretty good plays today, whether it was AMD or NVIDIA. Those two stocks really sold off. And we saw other big stocks in the market continue down as well, like Shopify also continued from yesterday's sell-off. And Bank of America, the banks were also moving down, just dragging that SPY continually to the downside. I actually saw a pretty good head and shoulders pattern here on the SPY where you can see the neckline right there around 420, 420.50. That head is up around 423. And once we fell through like that big support at 418 today, it was a pretty nasty sell-off there. Then we actually ran up, retested it, end of day. And, there were some stocks that went crazy. We did have SoFi up 15%. Intel had a really good day. And Mike, we've been talking about these AI stocks continually. We had a couple comments. Some people were saying they're tired of hearing about NVIDIA. Well, hey, you're going to hear about them again because Intel exploded up here. $32. That was a pretty good hit at the end of day. Love to see them running up like this. And they're actually running up because NVIDIA's CEO says that they're open to a partnership with Intel. And they've actually talked about using Intel for their foundries in the past. So very interesting to me with NVIDIA here. Sounds awesome for Intel.
Yeah, well, basically while the AMD and Nvidia shareholders are getting rich after, those stocks are just booming month after month and year after year, all of these poor Intel shareholders are like getting depressed. But today was like a little sparkle of hope as, like you said, the Nvidia CEO said he's open to a deal with Intel. And that's all it took to cheer up some of these depressed Intel shareholders. And, while the news is not groundbreaking by any means, it's showing some daylight, right? And Intel stock loved it. And when you look at Intel stock, especially on like a weekly or monthly chart, it is just a bloodbath. The stock has been beaten down so much, and it actually has some really good bullish momentum right now. And this chip stock is moving up at a time where a lot of the other chip stocks are just falling off.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was really a good note there because we're starting to see those bigger tech stocks that have been moving up a lot lately start to finally pull back, like Apple, Microsoft. Those two stocks actually have pretty bad days today. Look at those uptrends. Google's another one. They actually were slightly green on the candle, but red overall on the day there. So these stocks are starting to come back down, and it's good to see Intel kind of inversing those right now. And I think that if they continue to get some good news with this partnership or something like that, they could definitely start to come up. And, they've been channeling down here a lot. They have big support around 25, big resistance right around 33. So I'm curious if we're going to be able to break this resistance or not. It's a big level, Mike, and I'm really hoping that we can, though, over the next couple of weeks so that it can start to move back up like some of these stocks already have, like AMD and etc. And it seems like they're kind of following some of these growth stocks up as well. We saw SoFi continue up today, along with Asana and a couple of others. Like, it's been pretty good for these growth stocks the past couple of weeks.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, SoFi, the stock that is just booming right now, we actually have to talk about this one a little bit as basically the debt deal is set to pass, right? It's not set in stone yet, but if the debt deal does pass, basically people who have student loans will have to start making payments on those loans again. And that'll actually be really great for SoFi as they have a lot of exposure to that industry. And, obviously, when people start to pay back their loans, it's good for a company like SoFi in that basically finance space. People will also look to refinance and stuff like that, but investors just love this news today, and SoFi stock is moving to the upside in a really explosive way.
Yeah, it really is. And it had a high of day right around the whole dollar mark of 7. So really watch this one tomorrow. If it breaks that whole dollar mark, it could be a great possible continuation. I know that stocks like SoFi are pretty pretty volatile out there. But for those day trades, I love them, Mike. Swinging some of these options on them can get pretty crazy with the volatility, but I really do like it for day trades. And watch that whole dollar mark. That could be a great level to break above tomorrow. And man, Mike, we have good news with SoFi here, good news with Intel. I will say, going into these other tech stocks, Amazon actually had some bad news today, and Kramer is actually adding fuel to the fire, saying that the money's in tech this year. So watch out, guys. I know everybody loves the inverse Kramer. There was a lot of talk today about him saying this, and I don't know, Mike. He could be right in some sense, but at the same exact time, we're getting bad news with Amazon, right? Now, Intel had some good news, but Amazon had some pretty bad news today about $30 million FTC settlement over Ring, where they were collecting some data that they shouldn't have been. And they actually had to pay $25 million for something that they did collecting children's data with their Alexa voice assistant. So pretty weird with Amazon. Now, I will say $30 million in FTC settlements. Like, let's be honest, Mike, like Amazon could probably set fire to $3 billion tomorrow and honestly be fine. So like this $30 million hit is nothing for them, but it could be bad for investor sentiment. And we're just seeing a huge rise out of these tech stocks lately. So I don't know, Mike. Kramer, that's a pretty weird thing for him to say, especially whenever we have stocks like Nvidia up like 280% from lows. I mean, I don't know how much more they could go at this point.
True that. Tom, you can't skip over the news from Jimmy Boy today. So I want to highlight this a little bit more because I was looking through Twitter and I was just dying at some of these Kramer memes. They're so funny. But, as Tom already said, we have, the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Cramer saying that the money's in tech this year and to tread carefully when it comes to any other sector. I saw a bunch of people on Twitter being like, all right, I'm selling every single tech stock I own and basically putting it in every area of the market. Kramer said not to. So that was funny. But either way, I actually do think this is a stupid decision as well. When you look at the tech industry right now, some of like the biggest stocks in there, whether it's Nvidia, whether it's Meta or Apple, or you could say Google, like all these powerhouse tech stocks are up like in some cases almost 300%. It's like, I'm not going to try and buy those stocks now. So it's like, I feel like tech can actually pull back quite a bit. So I will be looking at some of these stocks like Meta, even Apple and Google for some pullbacks in the short term. And, there's multiple ways to capitalize off of a possible pullback. Honestly, the easiest way would be like SQQQ. So SQQQ, it's a tongue twister right there. But this basically goes to the upside quite a bit when tech stocks fall down. And right now it's at like $23. And we can see over the past year, it's fluctuated quite a bit, even closer to like that $70 mark. So we'll see what happens. And again, it is a risky trade anytime you short tech stocks. But hey, they're up quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly. And the big thing is like tech could keep going. Some of these stocks are just getting so parabolic though. Like what I'm kind of thinking, Mike, is that some of these tech stocks, for example, like Zoom, right? I think some of these growth stocks that are tech have a lot better chance than maybe some of the bigger overall tech stocks right now, like Apple, Microsoft, like all the ones you named. Obviously, they're up so much right now. But I do think that some other parts of tech, like some of the smaller stocks, might start to do a little bit better as, some of these stocks pull back. Maybe investors will start to park their money into some of those, growth type stocks. Sometimes that actually happens in the market during some pullback. So we'll have to see what happens, Mike, but it's very interesting to see Kramer saying that. Like you said, it is a risky play to short tech, but I think that given that those bigger tech stocks are going to have the most influence on the indices like QQQ, like you said, SQQQ would be a fantastic way to go, if not even UVXY if the market gets crazy enough.
You know it. Well, with that being said, Tom, let's get right into some setups for tomorrow. There's one stock I've been watching pretty closely, and that's Apple, and this goes basically hand in hand what we were just talking about. It's a big tech stock. It's pretty overbought, and today at close, just a wave of sellers came in and brought this stock down quite a bit, basically to its low of day. So I will be watching this one pretty closely to the downside for tomorrow and the rest of the week.
Yeah, I'm with you. This stock is definitely catching a lot of downside momentum here in after hours, and I could see a lot of these tech stocks falling off, whether it's Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia. I mean, there's so many opportunities right now. And of course, my first stocks to the downside, Mike, AMD, really falling off here today. I talked about it over the past few days as well. Really watch it. It had a bad drop today. Watch for it to fall under this support right around 116. Now, there is some support around 117. I think it's better to be safer. Wait for the drop below 116, kind of like today. There was a pretty good move down. So I really like these tech stocks down, Mike. They're so overextended, like we keep saying. And AMD is one of my favorites. They're up a lot over the past couple months.
There we go. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is Meta, META. Again, it's pretty overbought, and it's just slowing down a little bit. Like, yes, it's still holding up decently, but it's just the trend is slowing. So I will be watching this one also to the downside for tomorrow and the rest of the week.
Yeah, and this 264, 265 area here on them seems to be pretty big. If we keep rejecting right here, that's going to be a pretty good setup heading into tomorrow, especially considering the volatility with Meta lately. Like, look at these moves. Some of these options on Meta have been going absolutely insane. Now, I will say, Mike, my next play is a little bit crazy. It's SPY, okay? I'm actually looking to short the S&P 500 tomorrow. I noticed a big head and shoulders pattern here. I love this. I talked about it a lot in Discord today. There was a lot of hits off these resistances and moves back down. I really love that hit end of day there around 418 to 419. If we keep rejecting down, we fall under that low of day around 416, then I will look at some puts to the downside. Like we keep talking about, Mike, these tech stocks are set to fall. And if they do, these indices are going to fall down as well. And I even noticed the banks were pretty rough today, like Bank of America, JP Morgan, and the oil stocks. Like, it's just like so many rough things at one time.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, with that being said, it is now time for the momentum plays. With the first one, we have Intel to the upside.
INTC, almost a perfect double top there, right around 32.20. So if they can break that, watch for some calls.
Sounds good. And with the next one, we have JP Morgan to the downside.
Yeah, these poor banks here, man. It's terrible. If they actually break under this double bottom right around 134.50, watch for some puts. That could be a pretty significant mover.
All right. And with the last one, we have ExxonMobil to the downside.
Yeah, I love this one. Oil's been really falling off. We talked about some hedge funds being bearish against oil. If Exxon falls under 101.50, watch for a move down to maybe around 100. That would be a big move down to that big support down there.
All right, well, you guys heard Tom. We have that downside level on XOM and JP Morgan. If they break below those levels, we will watch these stocks for puts. And then we have INTC with that upside level. If it breaks above that, we'll watch it for calls. But it is now time for the big money $679,000 trade of the day. And we are looking at none other then SoFi, SOFI. We were talking about this stock a little bit earlier. Basically, someone dumped $679,000 into the SoFi $7.50 straight call options that expire on June 16th of 2023. This is essentially a bet that SoFi stock will rise quite a bit in the future. Basically, SOFI needs to be higher than $7.50 for these call options to have any value at all. And I think this play comes at a really, I guess you could say, coincidental time, as the debt ceiling deal will actually force student loan borrowers to start, resuming their payments on their student loans.
Yeah, and I think this is a great play. I mean, even for the next couple days, if it even pops above 7 here and starts to approach 750, man, this is probably going to start to really run up here with that volatility in the short term. So keep your eyes on this. That $7 resistance is huge right here, though. We're going to have to see a big break here tomorrow. But if we do, I think 750 is pretty safe. Especially, I think we could go even higher, even $8 plus. So watch this. This is a lot of money going in, Mike. So, and it's a volatile stock. SoFi is a fun one to play. It gets a lot of big swings. And with the news, you would expect maybe this could continue here.
Alrighty, and we can't move on without talking about one of the most popular stocks of the past couple weeks, and that is AI. Ticker symbol AI, of course. C3 AI just reported earnings right now, and it is not looking too good in after hours. The stock initially tried to pop back up, but it didn't go too well, and Tom, we're falling lower and lower by the minute.
Yeah, we really are. I mean, this is terrible to see, Mike. I mean, I cannot believe that this stock is selling over the way that it is right now. Now, I know that there are some pretty whack numbers here whenever we start to look at year over year numbers and everything like that. These numbers weren't that good. Like total revenue for the quarter was 72.4 million. Subscriptions constitute 79% of that revenue. GAAP gross profit for the quarter was 47.5 million, representing 66% of the gross margin. So there's a lot of these numbers, Mike, that I don't know. Whenever I saw them, I was not necessarily, like overly impressed. Like right here, subscription revenue, 11.4% growth over full year 2022. Like that's good. Now I did see some good numbers for 2024 where they see revenue way higher than the expectation, which is fantastic for me there. But in the short term, obviously it's just nothing wowing. And whenever you have a stock moving up like AI has been lately, you need something that really wows, like Nvidia's earnings. They were perfect. They really wowed investors. AIs, unfortunately, right now are not wowing investors this far.
Exactly. So another thing to keep in mind too is this stock has been running up like I can't even describe. Like seriously, it's like been better than like a rocket ship over this past year. It basically went from $10 up to almost like 44. It's crazy. That's 325%. And it's like when you have a move of that magnitude, you like need like some really, really good news to keep up that level of buying pressure.
Yeah, you do. And with the bad earnings here, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to like crash and burn forever. Like watch some of these big supports, maybe like $32, maybe 30 even's pretty big. There's been a lot of hits there. So there's a lot of levels to watch for this one. Even down here around 25, there was a lot of wicks on that stock down there as well. So if you're watching it to the downside, maybe for a support bounce or something, there's a few levels you can look at, but I'm definitely leaning down right now, Mike. It goes to show that whenever you have these stocks get too parabolic in the short term, you'll have things like this happen. Like obviously Nvidia was fantastic, but it doesn't always go that way. And that's how, this one just goes to prove that.
Exactly. So looking at the market right now, we're definitely starting to see some stronger pressure come in from the bears, whether you're looking at big tech stocks, some earnings, or even other areas in the market. And that's definitely worth noting. And when you look at, the market overall, you always have to go to the powerhouse, like the powerhouse, Apple, right? It has the heaviest weighting in the S&P 500, and it hit like the 179.30 level today like a brick wall, and there is some serious selling pressure overhead, Tom. Let's take a look at Bookmap and see where these sellers and buyers are lined up.
Yeah, exactly. So 180 overhead is huge right now. If we go back day by day on Bookmap, these sellers just keep coming in here. Now, if we zoom in a little bit, you can actually see the number here. So right around the end of day, there was 754,000 shares stacked up right there at $180 as sellers. So that is huge to see, Mike. I mean, if we start running up to that 180 level, expect more rejection. And there's even sellers ahead of that, right? Trying to front run it probably at 179.50. Now it's not as much, you can see like 56,000, 10,000 right there, but it's still a lot. Now you go to after hours here, there's still some at 180, but obviously it'll probably pick back up tomorrow like it has the past few days. Just watch that level. To the downside, there's a decent support here right around 176.50. So we have to really watch that as time goes forward. But if we start breaking below this big support, Mike, I think we could sell off a significantly more amount. I don't really see us retesting that 180 level too much anymore. I mean, that was a huge hit end of day, and so many sellers came rushing in right there.
Yeah, I love to have this Bookmap X-ray vision. Basically from 179.30 to like 180, there is a lot of selling pressure, and it's like if you're even thinking about playing Apple to the upside right now, you just have to keep that selling pressure in mind because it is pretty strong. We saw a couple different areas of some okay buying pressure with Apple, but it's nothing too crazy. So definitely keep that in mind. But Tom, do you have any last minute thoughts before we close out?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many stocks right now, so high. It's hard to look at everything. Now, Mike, I will say we have some earnings for tomorrow. Watch Broadcom, Lululemon, ChargePoint, Asana. Pretty decent stocks there. I know a few people have been talking about Broadcom a lot lately. That stock is ticker symbol AVGO. They've had a few chip deals. They're getting into AI, stuff like that. So, pretty interesting one. You know, it's not going to be as good as AI was tonight, but it's going to be an interesting report nonetheless. So watch the earnings. There's also a couple Fed speakers mixed in throughout the day tomorrow as well.
Sounds great. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. Here is the economic schedule for the week and all the important things you need to know. There's nothing too crazy for tomorrow. We have some initial jobless claims, and then on Friday, we have the unemployment rate and non-farm payrolls. So buckle up. It should be an exciting end to the week. And last but not least, we want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day on YouTube, which is Ali Turk. You've been commenting in a positive way on the channel for a very long time, and you definitely deserve a shout out. So thank you so much for everything. Huge shout out to you. And besides that, let's have an amazing rest of the week.